and welcome to Lincoln to Local. I'm Rachel Havens, and today I've got Marla Peek here with me from the Oklahoma Farm Bureau Legal Foundation. And Marla, we've been involved with the foundation with several Supreme Court cases on a federal level here recently. Will you tell us about some of those?
Sure. We've actually been involved in 3. And the first is the Castro-Huerta case, which came out of the McGirt case. And the issue there was whether or not Oklahoma has concurrent jurisdiction on certain crimes on a reservation. It's been determined that, yes, tribes have jurisdiction and the federal government has jurisdiction when it's involving a tribal member, but it's less clear if the person that has had the crime committed against them and by a non-tribal person, it's less clear who has jurisdiction there. So the state of Oklahoma has asked for jurisdiction. We are supporting the state of Oklahoma, feeling like the state should have concurrent jurisdiction. We're talking about half the state. Everything that we do is based in private property rights usually, and it was a project that the board of directors approved. Oral arguments have been held, so we expect a decision probably by the end of June.
So how does the Castro-Huerta case affect Oklahoma farmers and ranchers?
We became involved in the case about the jurisdictional issue, whether or not the state should have jurisdiction, like I said before, with the tribe when there is a non-tribal person who commits a crime against a tribal person. We have lots of members who are tribal members. Say one of our cattle raisers, for example, has cattle stolen. You would think that the county sheriff would come out. But if we have a member who's also a tribal member, that wouldn't necessarily be the case. Whatever tribe our member belongs to could have jurisdiction. And that gets kind of sticky. It's a difference between having your local county sheriff be involved versus having a tribal type government that might cover 14 counties, for example. Those are the types of things that we're concerned about. Things that don't get resolved because they're not a major crime.
Sure. Well, it's definitely an interesting issue. I know one of the other cases we are also involved in is Sackett versus the Environmental Protection Agency.
Yes.
Will you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. It's about what is a water of the United States. And the Sacketts had an administrative decision made against them by the EPA. These were landowners in Idaho who were building a home. And so they appealed to the Supreme Court because the issue was, can they appeal an administrative decision in the court? And the court said they could. So now Sackett is back in front of the United States. It's an exciting case because we hope we get some clarity on what is a water of the United States. We had a prior Supreme Court decision that did not give clarity at all. Significant nexus, for example, we need some clarity. Other states have had horror stories about EPA or the Army Corps of Engineers going after regular farmers and ranchers and trying to regulate them. Fortunately, we have not had those horror stories, but it's always a possibility.
Sure.
It seems like the underlying theme is EPA wants to control what happens on private property. And our group, we went together. Altogether, there's 20 state farm bureaus that provided a friend of the court brief on this issue. Altogether, our issue is that it's overreach. It's federal overreach. We need some clarity, and all of our states have authority over the waters within our states, and all of our states have a definition of water of the state that's larger, that encompasses more waters than does the federal. So that's where we are. There's so much excitement, I guess, about this case, hoping to get some clarity on this. The friend of the court briefs in support of the Sacketts, there were 30. That is a lot. So now we're waiting on the briefs from the other side, from the EPA and the any groups taking the opposition side to be filed.
So our main concern there with the kind of the inconsistency of what a waters of the United States is means that, in theory, a puddle or a depression in a piece of land or a ditch or anything like that could potentially be considered a water of the United States.
It could be. And in some areas, we've had federal agencies that have gone after landowners and farmers and tried to restrict what they do on their property. And so that's been a big concern for us.
Definitely. Well, it'll be good. Hopefully we'll get some clarity one way or the other.
It's very exciting.
Excellent. So the third case that we've been involved with is Proposition 12 out of California. Will you tell our members a little bit about that?
Yes, Proposition 12 was a state question, we call it a state question here in Oklahoma, that was approved by the voters in California that said that it put certain restrictions on how hogs are raised. It said that breeding hogs were required to have 24 square feet of open space. And they said that anybody who wants to sell pork within their state must abide by their rules that California has set. So California has very small pork production. But they're a huge market for the rest of the United States. What they are saying, what they're demanding basically, is that people who are raising hogs outside of California and are sending it to California as, that's part of their market, selling pork. They're saying that if you live in another state, you have to abide by our standards or you cannot sell your pork here. So it seems like it's a much bigger issue than it appears. Can we have any state tell other states, here's what you have to do raising your animals if you want to sell here? So we feel like it's inconsistent with the Commerce Clause in the Constitution. And on this issue, we went together with several state farm bureaus. The petitioner in this particular case was the National Pork Council and American Farm Bureau. So we're very proud of American Farm Bureau's leadership role in this important issue. So our brief with the various state farm bureaus is in support of the petitioner.
And I know you talked a lot about the interstate commerce and how that's certainly an issue. The other potential, I would think, is the enormous financial burden that would place on pork producers around the country in having to rebuild their facilities. Is that something we've considered? Absolutely.
That's a good point. Hogs are not raised the way that California says you have to do it. That is not how the industry works. It would be just not financially possible to retrofit facilities to meet those standards. It's not current industry practice. It wouldn't be affordable to do it. It's not realistic in the way that the pork industry works. It's just not doable. Definitely. And so it's extremely unreasonable to expect that the state of California can change pork production across the United States.
Definitely. Well, we certainly appreciate the Legal Foundation's involvement in these cases, and it'll be interesting to see how, what comes of that. But I appreciate your time, Marla. Thank you so much.
And thank you.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of Lincoln to Local.